There is a pain that many carry in silence. It is not that blatant pain that cries out loud and asks for help. It is the silent pain of those who feel they do everything right, but life seems to remain the same. That sensation of walking in circles, of touching the edge of change and seeing everything slip back to the same point, as if something inside us were still trapped in an invisible cycle, an old vibration the body has not forgotten. It is the tension between an elevated intention and a body accustomed to the old pattern. The heart says yes, but the cells still live in no. And without realizing it, we end up living a battle between what we dream of being and what biology has learned to sustain. Carl Jung, the great explorer of the soul, called habits the footprints of the unconscious. They are the trail left by everything that has not yet been integrated, by the shadows, the complexes, the invisible loyalties that keep choosing for us. Reality, he said, repeats not what you desire, but what your psyche has not yet understood. You can affirm the new as much as you want. If the shadow is not welcomed, it will continue to command the plot of your life, in silence. Bruce Lipton, along the same line, brought this wisdom to the body. He showed us that beliefs are epigenetic software, unseen programs that instruct biology on how to respond to the world. Each thought, each emotion, each expectation sends a biochemical order to the cells. And when emotion, attention, and repetition enter into coherence, a recoding window opens. There is no magic in 21 days. There is biology and vibration cooperating. It is the minimum time for the body to understand. The new is safe. I can change. The mistake lies in treating 21 days as a mystical stopwatch. They are not a sacred clock. They are a protocol of neuroplasticity and physiological coherence. The body changes in a state of safety, not euphoria. Transformation does not happen when you force the new, but when the body trusts it. Joe Dispenza calls this the coherence between brain and heart, the state in which the mind and body rehearse the future now. It is when you begin to feel the result before you have it. And in this state, the body learns to vibrate according to the future you are creating, not the past you are repeating. This episode is an invitation, a map between science and soul. Here, the 21 days will not be seen as superstition, but as a psychobiological rite of passage, a crossing from automatism to symbolic self-regulation. We will understand the hidden power of the brain and the soul when they work together. And in the end, you will have a real, applicable, and sacred plan to rewrite your own cycles. Everyone wants to change something in their own life, but few realize that true change does not begin with actions. It begins with the identity that sustains them. You can repeat new habits, new phrases, new routines. But if the old image still lives inside you, yesterday will continue to command today. This is the invisible block, trying to create the new with the same self that built the old. You want to be disciplined, but you still see yourself as someone undisciplined. You want to prosper, but you feel uncomfortable when things begin to flow. You want peace, but the body is accustomed to tension. The mind says, "Let's go." The body whispers, "It's dangerous." And the unconscious, which is the true conductor of reality, obeys the body. Carl Jung called this the unconscious self-concept, the layer of identity where silent beliefs live. They're hide phrases that seem harmless. I am lazy. I always give up. It's not for me. Each one is a vibrational anchor, keeping the boat tied to the harbor of the past, even when the sails are ready for the sea. The Galatea effect explains this precisely. Human performance is shaped not by others' expectations, but by one's own. It is what you believe you are that defines how much you allow yourself to flourish. Neuroscience shows that this self-concept lives in the basal ganglia, structures that store the circuits of habits, cue, routine, and reward. With each repetition, this circuit strengthens like a track. And if the locomotive of identity does not change direction, the train will always return to the same destination. Here is the expectation breaker. Forcing discipline without changing identity only increases friction. The more force you apply, the more resistance the unconscious creates. Because it understands change as a threat to balance. It is like trying to push a river to run in another direction. Before changing behavior, it is necessary to change the being who executes it. Not what one does, but what one believes oneself to be while doing it. And for that, there is a simple and symbolic technique: the practice of the 12 identity words. Before each action, declare aloud, I am someone who honors 10 minutes of writing at 7 a.m. I am someone who begins the day in harmony. Why, I am someone who commits to the new with lightness. In just 12 words, you teach the brain the role you are choosing to embody. The verb I am is an activation key. It signals to the unconscious. A new script is being written. It is not just an affirmation. It is a vibrational instruction. The body responds to the coherence of tone, gesture, and intention. When this small declaration repeats for days, the brain creates a new identity record. The habit ceases to be an attempt and becomes a natural expression. Imagine your life as a gallery. The paintings are your actions, the frames your circumstances. But the one who chooses the paintings is identity. And changing the habit without changing identity is like changing the frame while leaving the painting the same. You can hang the painting on another wall, but the inner scenery remains the same. Jung used to say, what is not brought to consciousness returns as fate. As long as you do not update the who I am, life will continue repeating the same what happens. But when you change the identity field, fate reorganizes itself in silence. Real transformation is not forced. It is revealed. It is not what you try to become, but what you remember you are. Because with each coherent habit, you do not create a new version of yourself. You merely dust off the ancient soul that was always there, waiting to be seen. And that is how the first step of the 21-day rule begins. Not by trying to change behavior, but by assuming a new vibration of being. Because the body will always obey the strongest image, and the strongest image is the one you hold in silence when no one is looking. Have you noticed how every change begins with an intense spark? The excitement of a new beginning. The glow of a promise. The feeling that this time it will be different. But a few days later, that light goes out. The will fades, the mind creates excuses, and the body feels heavy. You think, what happened to me? In truth, nothing went wrong. You simply entered the phase where dopamine gives way to consolidation. The human brain is like a gardener who gets excited when planting a seed, but forgets that the soil requires daily care. The first impulse comes from dopamine, the neurotransmitter of the new, the fuel of motivation. But it is volatile. Dopamine is a firework, beautiful at the start, but fleeting. True change does not arise from this flash. It arises from stable attention, guided by acetylcholine, the molecule of concentration. While dopamine makes the brain want, acetylcholine teaches it to remain. And here is the secret almost no one understands. Transformation is not a peak. It is a rhythm. Spirituality calls this anchoring. Science calls it sustained neuroplasticity. But at heart, both speak of the same thing: presence. The initial excitement is only the door. It is the quiet constancy that crosses the threshold. When you change something abruptly, the brain reacts with alarm. It understands novelty as danger, not evolution. This is what neuroscientists call prediction error. The brain wants to minimize surprises. Every time you change the pattern radically, it pulls the emergency brake and tries to restore the familiar. That is why transformation requires subtlety. It is not about forcing the new, but teaching the new to the body with gentleness. This is where spiritual neuroscience finds its most poetic point. You cannot fight the old. You must re-educate it with love. Many fall into the trap of confusing the dopaminergic peak with consolidation. They think that because they feel excited, the new has already been installed. But this enthusiasm, if not stabilized, dissipates, like a wave that breaks before touching the sand. The secret lies in trading intensity for constancy. Like the sun, which warms every day without haste, yet never stops shining. That is the true creative force. Constancy that does not need spectacle. Neuroscience proves it. The brain learns through rhythmic repetition in a safe environment. Abrupt changes activate the defense system. Gentle repetitions activate the learning system. You teach the new not with force, but with frequency. This is where the principle of ritualized micro-victories comes in. They are small achievements that the brain recognizes as success, creating dopamine in the right measure. Enough to keep the flow, not to exhaust it. Apply the 3-step anchoring technique. Fixed cue. Choose the same time and the same place for the practice. This signals predictability to the nervous system. Minimal invariant action. Practice for 2 to 5 minutes. Enough to make failure impossible. Somatic closure. Finish with 4-7-8 breathing, inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 7, exhaling for 8. This cycle communicates to the body that the new is safe. This simplicity is the code the brain understands. You do not need to change the world. You only need to change the rhythm. The analogy is perfect. You do not turn a ship's rudder with a jolt. You turn it with steady pressure until the entire ocean obeys the new direction. In life, the same principle applies. The energetic field responds to constant frequency, not grand gestures. That is why spiritual discipline is not rigidity. It is love in motion. The human body is a silent oracle. It learns through repetition, but it opens through emotion. Each micro-victory is a conversation between the conscious and the unconscious, a reminder that you can trust your own rhythm. When you repeat something small with presence, the body understands. I am safe. I can continue. Hurry! And with each repetition, the old version of yourself loses strength. Not because it was defeated, but because it was understood. This is the beauty of the spiritual start. It begins as enthusiasm, but blossoms as serenity. You do not need to feel you are changing. You only need to keep walking. The invisible will do the rest. And that is how dopamine yields to acetylcholine, and the sparkle of excitement becomes the quiet flame of consistency. The habit ceases to be effort and becomes breath. And the body, once resistant, begins to cooperate with the soul. Perhaps no one has clearly explained this to you. True reprogramming does not happen in the mind. It happens in the body. You can repeat mantras, affirm positive beliefs, create vision boards. But if the body is still trapped in the old emotional state, nothing holds. The body is the altar of the mind. It is the guardian of the silent gospel of beliefs. Bruce Lipton, a cell biologist, showed that belief is biology in motion. Each emotion, each expectation, each thought creates a chemical cascade. And this cascade is recorded in the cells like a vibrating memory. The body then becomes a kind of antenna, picking up the same signal it is accustomed to transmitting. Here lies the great revelation. It is not enough to change the thought. You must change the physical vibration the thought provokes, because the body does not hear words. It hears states. Think for a moment, how many times have you affirmed, I trust, I deserve, I am capable. But deep down, your chest tightened, your shoulders hunched, and your stomach clenched. The body did not believe. And it is the body that sends the strongest signal. The body is like a translator of the soul. If the mind says one thing and the body says another, the universe listens to the body. That is why Bruce Lipton teaches that real change begins when you re-educate the body to feel the new state. This is what he calls epigenetic coherence, when the internal state, emotional and physiological, aligns with the belief you want to program. For this, there is a simple and powerful practice, the 90-second epigenetic script. It is a brief somatic meditation that unites mind, breath, and body in a single intention. Proceed like this. Open posture. Gently lift the chest, relax the shoulders, uncross the legs. The body needs to understand it is available. Slow nasal breathing. Inhale deeply, allowing the air to enter like a new instruction. Exhale as one who releases the old. Functional phrase, say in a low and felt voice the belief you want to reprogram, but link it to a bodily signal. For example, I trust, and feel the jaw unclench. I deserve, and notice warmth rise through the shoulders. I am ready, and feel the heart expand. During those 90 seconds, it is not the brain that believes, it is the body that learns. And when the body believes, the brain follows. This small ritual is more than symbolic. It is biological. By associating emotion and posture, you create new neuroendocrine patterns. The message ceases to be merely mental and becomes vibrational. And there is a secret beauty in this. The body does not distinguish imagination from reality. If you make it feel, it records it as true. This is how a new epigenetic program is installed. Imagine the mind as the dial of a radio, and the body as the wire that connects it to the station. There is no use turning the dial if the wire is loose. You do not change the frequency with intention alone. You must ground the wire in physical experience. That is why mental change, when not accompanied by a coherent bodily gesture, gets lost in the air. The word, I trust, spoken with a body in defense is like trying to tune a song with interference. But when body and mind agree, the sound becomes clear. This is Bruce Lipton's wisdom. You do not force the cell to change. You invite it, and it responds to coherence, not command. That is why the 21 days are so effective. They create a field of consistency where body, emotion, and intention learn to align. Day after day, the body begins to understand that the new is safe. It stops resisting and begins to cooperate. And there is something almost mystical in this. When the body vibrates gratitude, each cell becomes an antenna of light. When the body feels trust, the field around it reorganizes. The entire universe responds to physiological coherence. So before trying to think differently, ask yourself, what is my body feeling right now? Because it is the body that materializes what the mind believes. The body is the first portal of materialization. And when it vibrates the new, the invisible begins to manifest effortlessly. That is why, ultimately, every change is bodily before it is visible. There comes a point in the journey when everything seems to go wrong. The fatigue comes, the enthusiasm disappears, and the old pattern returns disguised as logic. Today, I can't. It won't make a difference. I already failed, so I'll start again later. This moment is inevitable. And it is not a mistake. It is the shadow asking for a voice. Carl Jung called these autonomous complexes, parts of the psyche that seem to have a life of their own. They are emotions, beliefs, and memories that have organized themselves like small internal personalities. They are not bad, only protective. They are the fragments of the soul that learned to defend you through fear, giving up, and self-sabotage. When you begin to change, these complexes stir. They feel transformation as a threat. And they do what they do best: keep you safe, even if unhappy. The unconscious does not seek happiness, it seeks continuity. And anything that challenges the known activates resistance. Therefore, refined procrastination, selective fatigue, the chance that diverts you from the habit. None of this is a coincidence. It is the unconscious trying to preserve its old territory. But at this moment, most people give up, thinking it is a lack of willpower. And this is where consciousness needs to take the helm. Jung taught that the shadow is not overcome, it is integrated. The unconscious does not disappear when it is fought, it grows stronger. But when it is understood, it becomes an ally. This is the principle of the transcendent function, holding the opposites within yourself: desire and fear, courage and doubt, yes and no, until a third path arises, something new that transcends the conflict. The shadow in this context is not an enemy. It is a guardian. It keeps bound everything you are not yet ready to carry. And when you decide to evolve, it appears to test the integrity of your intention. Not to destroy you, but to mature you. That is why self-sabotage is, paradoxically, an act of love in disguise. It tries to protect you from the suffering the new may bring. But by welcoming this unconscious intention, you dissolve the tension and transform fear into power. There is a simple and powerful Jungian technique for this: the two-chair dialogue. Sit in one chair and give voice to the part that wants to change. Speak as it: I want to move forward. I want to create something new. Then switch chairs and speak as the part that resists. I am afraid. I only want to protect you. I fear you will suffer if you fail. Listen to both. And finally ask, how can we protect what you fear with a smaller and safe habit? This brief dialogue creates a bridge between conscious and unconscious. It is a symbolic reconciliation between light and shadow. The part that's sabotaged begins to collaborate, and fear turns into wise prudence, not blockage. The symbolic image is ancient: alchemy. The lead of fear is heated until it fuses with the gold of consciousness. The alchemist does not throw the lead away, he heats it until it becomes an alloy. Thus, what once weighed down now strengthens. The shadow is the lead, consciousness is the fire. Integration is the gold. During the 21 days, you will feel the fire of this alchemy. It is normal. There will be days of light and others of density. Days when the soul wants to move forward and the body wants to stop. But remember, it is precisely there that the new is being forged. The function of the shadow is not to stop you, it is to test whether your desire is genuine. It asks, do you really want this, or are you just playing at wanting? And when you answer with constancy, the shadow kneels before the light. At this point, the materialization process changes levels. You stop wanting to manifest something and begin to embody something. You stop seeking outside and start revealing within. And when the shadow is integrated, it becomes magnetic strength. What once sabotaged you now sustains you. And reality, at last, obeys a unified psyche. This is Jung's secret applied to 21 days. Change is only real when it includes what was previously rejected. Transformation does not come from denying fear, but from giving it a new job. The shadow is the gatekeeper, and if you treat it with respect, it will lead you to the other side. Have you noticed there are days when everything seems to flow? People smile more. Decisions come easily. Even the air feels more alive. And on other days, it's the opposite. Everything jams, nothing flows, and reality seems to push you back. These states are not random. They reflect your electromagnetic coherence, the alignment between what your heart feels, what your mind thinks, and what your body vibrates. Joe Dispenza calls this brain-heart coherence. When brain waves and heart rhythm come into sync, something extraordinary happens. Biology begins to work for you, not against you. The heart, contrary to what many think, is not just a pump. It is an organ of perception. It has an electromagnetic field 60 times stronger than the brain's. It is the first organ to form in the embryo, and the last to go quiet when we depart. It is the heart that tells the mind whether we are safe or threatened, and it is the heart that determines whether reality will be received with fear or with faith. Modern science confirms it. The emotional state of the heart directly modulates the central nervous system. When the heart is in coherence, brain waves harmonize. When it is in incoherence, the mind fragments. That is why, when you try to visualize something in the midst of anxiety, nothing happens. The body is disconnected from the intention. Dispenza explains, the body does not learn through concepts. It learns through states. You can imagine the future as much as you want, but if the body does not feel it, it does not register it as real. Materialization, then, is not thinking the new. It is rehearsing the new with the body. Heart coherence is the bridge that turns vibration into reality. It is the energetic code the universe understands. When you practice it, the field around you responds. The outer world becomes a reflection of the inner. But how to create this state in daily life? With something simple that Dispenza and the HeartMath Institute call coherence breathing. It is the thread that sews mind and heart together. The technique is straightforward. For 5 minutes, inhale for 6 seconds and exhale for 6 seconds. Do not rush. Let your breath become the metronome of your inner state. While breathing, bring to mind something for which you feel specific gratitude. Not a generic gratitude, a concrete scene. It can be a loved one's face, a sunset that moved you, a moment when you felt alive. Emotion is the portal. Gratitude is the key. As the body breathes and the heart feels, the field begins to reorganize. The mind calms, heart rate variability stabilizes, and a sense of expansion takes hold. This is the precise moment when neuroplasticity accelerates. The brain becomes more malleable and receptive to new instructions. You open the biological window of transformation. Right after this state, visualize a single scene. You performing the first micro-action of the habit you want to consolidate. Not the result, but the beginning. See yourself breathing, smiling, feeling the body light and coherent. This is what Joe Dispenza calls functional mental rehearsal, the body learning the future before it happens. You are not imagining. You are instructing the field. You are telling biology, this is who I am. And the body, obedient, begins to adjust its chemical and electrical signals to this vibration. Dispenza often says the heart is the battery and the brain is the engine, and you do not start the engine without charging the battery first. Elevated emotion is that energy. Without it, thought is just noise. With it, thought becomes creation. The human electromagnetic field is sensitive to coherence. It expands when there is gratitude, love, and presence, and it contracts when there is fear, haste, and control. That is why, when you are in coherence, people and situations naturally harmonize around you. You become a point of order in the chaos. And this is materialization in its essence, the external reality responding to internal harmony. The daily exercise of coherence is the link between the invisible and the concrete. It is the moment when the spirit manifests through the body, and the body becomes the expression of consciousness. There is no magic, there is vibration. And when vibration and emotion become one, the universe responds like an echo. 5 minutes of coherence are worth more than hours of mental effort, because coherence is the language the field understands. It is the moment when you do not merely believe, you feel. And feeling is the purest form of faith. A. Integrative synthesis, Bruce Lipton, plus Neville Goddard. Now that the journey is complete, everything connects. Bruce Lipton taught us that beliefs coordinate cellular responses, that each coherent thought sends a biochemical command, and that faith, when felt, is a molecule in action. The body does not distinguish metaphysics from biology. It only responds to vibration. Neville Goddard, in turn, brought the same mystery in poetic language. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Do not wait for something to happen to feel. Feel so that something happens. The body needs to memorize the future before it exists, because that is how creation moves, from the inside out. When Bruce Lipton speaks of epigenetics and Neville Goddard speaks of felt imagination, both describe the same phenomenon under different names: the coherence between emotional state, belief, and biology. When these three elements align, the universe responds. It is not magic, it is vibrational coherence. And the secret does not lie in doing a lot, but in being constant, because coherence is continuity. Therefore, the key to this journey is simple and powerful. Coherent state, plus rhythmic repetition, plus compatible identity, isolated willpower. Willpower is mental, coherence is existential. You can push the world with effort, or you can vibrate the new until the world inclines toward you. Take this phrase as an anchor. I practice being the one who sustains the result before the result. It is not about chasing the result. It is about becoming the frequency that sustains it. And when you vibrate as if you already were, the universe reorganizes the path to confirm what you decided to feel. Beware of spiritual perfectionism. But there is an essential caution on this path: spiritual perfectionism. That tendency to turn growth into a race. To believe that failing one day is to fall back a lifetime. This is the ego's voice disguised as devotion. The same ego that once compared itself to others now compares itself to its own light. Perfectionism is a kind of resistance. It tries to control even the process of letting go, and this imprisons the spirit in a cycle of self-demand. Missing a day is not losing the process, it is part of it. True constancy is not linear. It is compassionate. Spiritual progress is made of waves, approaches, and departures that, seen from above, form an ascending spiral. Therefore, when you feel lost, practice the 10-minute return. Go back only to the first micro-action. Nothing else. Sit, breathe, repeat the initial gesture. This small act interrupts the guilt cycle and reactivates the trust cycle. Jung said that failure is the raw material of individuation. It does not prove incapacity, it proves humanity. And humanity is the soil where the divine blooms. Remember, compassionate constancy wins over rigid constancy. Rigidity tries to control the path. Compassion allows the path to transform you. See, practical indicators that reality is changing. How to know if the process is working. How to perceive that something has, in fact, begun to reorganize. The signs are subtle, but unmistakable. First, the body changes. Sleep becomes deeper. Focus comes with less effort, and there is a sense of lightness upon waking. You begin to prefer silence, and what once seemed difficult starts to flow naturally. Then the emotional field changes. Reactions become slower and more conscious. The heart stops reacting out of defense and begins to respond out of presence. You notice you no longer need so much control. Things simply fall into place. Finally, the world changes. People seem more open. Conversations gain depth. And life, subtly, begins to cooperate. The objective markers of this transition are clear. Improvement in sleep and physical recovery. Increased heart rate variability, a sign of emotional coherence. Reduced time needed to enter focus. The subjective markers are even more precious. A feeling of relational warmth. More intuitive decisions. Less need for external validation. But there is a golden criterion. the most important of all. The growing ease of performing the first action of the habit without mental negotiation. When this happens, it is a sign that body, mind, and spirit are finally speaking the same language. D. Functional 21-day plan. Simple script. Now you already understand the soul of the 21 days, but all wisdom needs form. Here is the functional script, the simple map for your ritual. Days. 1-7. Stabilize context. Choose the same cue, the same time, and a minimal action. Create the symbolic setting of coherence. Keep the body calm, the environment predictable, and observe a simple indicator: sleep, focus, or serenity. The goal is not to change yet, it is to create safety. Days 8-14. Consolidate identity in action. Now add the 12-word declaration before the practice. End each session with somatic closure, the force 7-8 breath. These days are the heart of the process. It is when the body begins to believe. Days 15-21. Consolidate through felt evidence. Record a sensation anchor after each practice. Notice the body, the warmth in the hands, the slight shiver, the relaxation. These are the signs that confirm recoding. At night before sleep, practice Neville-style rehearsal. Imagine the habit already incorporated as if it were an old memory. Do not visualize the future. Relive the present fulfilled. After 21 days, gradually increase time and complexity, only 10 to 20% per week. This maintains constancy and prevents coherence collapse. The 21 days are the birth. The rest is growth. E. Final symbolic image to carry. Imagine a silent greenhouse, bathed in soft light. Inside it, a small, fragile seedling rests in fertile soil. The gardener does not force it to grow. He merely cares for the temperature, the light, the humidity. He trusts time. You are the seedling and the gardener. The body is the greenhouse, and the habit is the seed. The gardener's role is to create the ideal conditions. The seed's role is to grow on its own. Likewise, the firm helm, the daily micro-actions, changes the course of the ship of reality, without spectacle, without drama, without haste. Strength is not in the sudden move, but in constant direction. And in the end, when the body stops resisting what you decided to be, that will be the sign. There will be no thunder, nor a visible miracle. It will be a new silence, a deep ease, the moment when soul, body, and mind breathe together. This is the true hidden power of the brain, not to create reality by force, but to allow the unconscious and the heart to work as one again. Because the universe does not respond to haste, it responds to coherence. And when you vibrate in truth, your entire life begins to align with what you already are.